Hello, people. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the famous soliloquy from Hamlet, to be or not to be. Do keep in mind all the discussions we had regarding proofrock, because they do still apply to what's going on in Hamlet's world. Okay, and I will readdress two quick points regarding proofrock in connection with Hamlet when the time comes. Okay, so this is actually not as complex as it can appear on the surface. So, as a little bit of analysis, you can quickly make a connection how relevant Hamlet is even to today's uh, population, okay, to the modern world. Um, okay, so I'm going to share the screen. I have posted, or will be posting, this element here, which is basically breaking down two versions of the speech where Hamlet is alone on the stage. So it's a soliloquy, and he's talking to himself. Okay, so on the left is, excuse me, the cat wants to get in. Hurry up, come on. Okay. Okay. On the left, we have the original Shakespeare. On the right, we have No Fear Shakespeare. Okay. I'm going to be primarily working with the left hand column. If you need to later go back and read the right hand column, I recommend it. Furthermore, I would recommend, I am putting out an assignment today based on this soliloquy. It'd be best if you watch the whole movie, write down any questions you have, and talk to me about those questions tomorrow during office hours, and then start the assignment. Okay? Don't let this lecture take the place of watching the full film, because it does impact how you're going to answer to the assignment. In a small fashion, it does. Okay. So, I'm not going to read the full lines of this soliloquy. I do want to go through the opening, however. So what's in orange, I will recite that. And then I'll shift over to the talk, to the breakdown, the analysis. Okay. So in the original text, here we go. To be or not to be. That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To die, to sleep no more. And by a sleep, to say we, end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consumption devoutly to be wished. Okay, so that's the opening 10 or so lines. Breaking this down, the first thing we need to consider, the whole opening line we've addressed more or less with the proofrock discussions. Okay, so when Hamlet says to be or not to be, he basically is saying, is suicide valid? Okay, to be means to exist. Not to be means not to exist. So the question is to live or to kill oneself. He's contemplating his life and his situation. He's seen the ghost of his father, and Hamlet doesn't understand the circumstances that are going on right now. So that's the whole notion of to be or not to be. Okay. Um, the second thing of importance, he's going to be comparing death with sleep. He's making a great comparison analogy. So it repeats. In this case, it's in line 61 where he first says to die to sleep. He's saying it's basically the same thing. And down here in line 65, it's going to confirm and repeat to die to sleep. So in his mind, he's basically saying death is like a form of sleep. Okay, so on a surface level, that's fine. I'll just basically, when my life ends, I'll just be sleeping in an eternal sleep. Okay. He does mention slings and arrows here. Slings and arrows in lines 59, line 59. So these are false hopes. Partly that is reason for his commentary, uh, where he's countering his. Basically, what is happening? He's debating with himself. Okay, so either he's saying death is a good thing or death is a bad thing, and he's looking at the cause and effect. Okay, it's less about the suicide question. And oh, well, let me put it this way: he shifts from the suicide question to the death question. Okay, um, so in his contemplations, he's saying at first maybe death is not that bad. You're just sleeping. Okay, but because of the circumstances of the slings and arrows being false hopes, those are sort of impacting on the reality. Um, there could be a catch to the situation. Okay, so that's why he said, "There's the rub." Okay, so he's countering the concept of just being asleep. The catch in this case, or the rub, is basically death could be just one. If you put yourself into the wrong state of being, let's say, you could be experiencing just one bad nightmare after you die. And that bad nightmare would be hellish. So you've put yourself into your own hell. Okay? So it's right here with that little statement, with that little situation, Hamlet is putting the play into an existential theme. Way ahead of the time before we actually defined existentialism. And this is important because this is what's establishing Shakespeare as a modern writer. He is an early modern writer. And it's for these reasons and these questions and these philosophical analogies that makes Shakespeare important today. Okay. Um, there is a moment where he talks about slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. These likewise tie into the word heartache. So, heartache is provided to you by Cupid, who shoots you full of arrows. So, the analogy you can infer from this is the slings and arrows of false hopes are becoming like the arrows that Cupid can shoot into you. So, if Cupid shoots you full of gold arrows, okay, and shoots your intended with gold arrows, you're both going to fall in love. And it's a happy closure. But if he shoots you with gold and shoots her with lead, she's not going to return the affection. Okay, so that's where the heartache and frustration picks up. Okay, so again, he's talking generally here. He's not specifically talking about Ophelia. Ophelia is in love with him. The question is Hamlet in love with Ophelia? Okay, is he thinking that he's been shot by a lead arrow. Okay. Um, as further connection building within the poem, the word bodkin pops up, and a bodkin is a long, thick needle. Um, so you remember in Prufrock, he's always talking about being pinned to the wall. There's the connection that Eliot, the poet, was making. Okay. Um, it's in line 75. In line 77, the word bodkin pops up with a bare bodkin. So again, that's one other parallel to Prufrock. The line where it's mentioned undiscovered country down here in line 80, I always love that analogy. It's a beautiful metaphor. It's a good way of explaining what death is. It's undiscovered. Furthermore, to make it more interesting, this is at the time in history where the explorers were finding all these new islands and new continents and new avenues, all these mysterious realms of thought that we had no clue was out there. The new world was open for everyone. Okay, in an optimistic way of looking at it. Um, so by saying undiscovered country, Shakespeare's making a nod to the current times of his contemporary life. So Hamlet the character is basically making a connection to all that death is just an undiscovered country. Individually, we all will end up visiting this country that no one individually, has provided back an answer. Um, it's unknown. It's undiscovered. Um, so the other thing to contemplate at this point, Hamlet does not want to be stuck in an internal state of confusion, in a limbo. If he murders in revenge for his father's death, he doesn't want to be condemned. Okay. He wants, if he's going to follow through with this revenge tactic of his, he wants to have firm safety that he'll go to heaven for the action and not go to hell for the action. Um, so likewise, Hamlet wants to be sure that if when he dies, he's going to get some sense of peace, rest. You if he commits suicide, he would be forced to be a ghost just like his father, um, which causes more confusion and, um, in Hamlet's mind, more chaos. Okay, it's all this giant unknown that's going on. But on the other hand, he doesn't want to be a coward. Okay, um, so that's why that word pops up as well. Um, Thinking about death makes cowards of everyone. Okay, uh, and he's bringing up this whole point that the state of the natural world is a state of decomposition, decay, rot. Nothing is eternal in this realm. The only eternity is in heaven or hell. Okay? We all must die. Nothing in the world lasts. So philosophically, he is considering, does life even matter? If we're all doomed, why do humans persist in the trials and errors that we go through? Okay, this is a very philosophical moment. He is looking at humanity and the world, and he's looking less at himself as an individual. Okay, that's another reason why this is very important to the play in showing it as a modern concept. all the pronouns in here are plural first person. They're we, us. Okay? There are no I voice in here. There is no I voice in here. And that's what makes it even more important and more evocative for this play, is because at this point, when Hamlet's thinking to himself on stage, all alone and isolated, the audience is being brought in and tied to him. You relate to him. He is including the audience in a sense because we are the collection that's going on here. So what's interesting, when Eliot was writing Prufrock goes through the same moment, but he can't ask these questions. Prufrock is locked in the eternal individual state. He doesn't have a collective sense of being. So that's one of his greatest flaws. He's stuck within his own hell of the I. Whereas compared to Hamlet, Hamlet is in the collective we. He's made a bridge to humanity. He's wanting to help humanity in a sense. And by helping humanity, Hamlet will help himself. And perhaps he's overthinking, logically. Hamlet could be overthinking this whole situation. What's interesting, if you've watched the play already, you may have noticed there are no really categories of good and bad in this play. Everybody in the play is an average individual who makes really bad decisions. They all make bad decisions. Keeping in mind that the play is from Hamlet's perspective, Claudius himself could be innocent. But because the focus is on Hamlet, you're seeing Claudius react to Hamlet. Okay? So with that happening, you're only getting Hamlet's perspective of Claudius's actions. Okay. So you really have no firm proof that Claudius has done anything. The ghost for this whole play could have been trying to condemn Hamlet. The ghost could be a demon in disguise as Hamlet's father. Okay? So that's where you get more contemplation and more questioning from the protagonist. Okay? So what's important now, if you haven't watched the full film, watch the whole film. Okay? This should tie in and make it easier to see where the themes and the existentialism is embedded. Okay? What I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you the assignment. Okay? Which means I have to switch screens. Okay. So really quickly, what we have here, again, you're looking at character development. In this case, Hamlet. Okay. So what you'll be doing, again, this is short and sweet. You are creating an academic paragraph. So jumping ahead, do not exceed more than one page. Limit it to one page. Okay? So at best, it's a full page. At least have it half a page. Out here in Google Classroom, I have posted a variety of performances of Hamlet's soliloquy. Just a soliloquy. Okay? you're going to look at your choices and select two to compare. You don't have to watch all of them because there's like 6 or 7 of them. You only have to watch 2 of them. So by looking at the actors' names, you can make your selection and watch. Okay. You're going to compare the effectiveness of the moment between the 2 actors. Okay. In your paragraph, you'll discuss which of the performances capture the true essence of what we just went over. And then you'll explain why in detail. Okay. You will use textual evidence when necessary. Okay. Maybe 2 or 3 times you'll need to quote. Otherwise, don't overdo it. Do consider how the chosen actor has performed the soliloquy. Was it effective? Does it work? Okay. You are making a choice between the 2. Consider how the settings as well emphasize the speech. So, for example, if you watch the Ethan Hawke's performance, he's in the middle of a 1990s convenience store, which brings it up to a whole new level of thought. He's in a commercial, industrialized, more or less, setting, and he feels the dehumanization of being an individual in modern society. Whereas Mel Gibson, he's shown in a catacomb with all these graves surrounding him. So only naturally he'll be contemplating death, okay, and the human condition. So that can factor in to your analysis. Okay, so when you're quoting, be sure to use the line count from the original text. Do not quote Shakespeare's No Fear, quote the original Shakespeare text. So you'll be using the correct line indicators from the play. That's why it's 60 to 85. You do not need a works cited page. And you will be posting this in turnitin.com. Okay? So it needs to be in there before Monday at midnight. I won't be posting anything for the rest of the week. You have Friday off. So if you can start this today, finish it tomorrow, you're done for this week. Okay? So all in all, as far as office hours are concerned, I've only been hearing from 2 or 3 of you. It's important that you check in with me at least once or twice. Probably next week I'll probably set up a separate hour just for you guys. Okay? So there's less of talk of King Lear, and you'll have a whole hour to ask me questions about Hamlet. Okay? So that's it for today. Hope things are going okay. Just let me know otherwise. And as always, as I'm always saying, be safe out there. Okay? Check in with me.